Welcome, everyone. My name is Amanda Makulec, and I'm the Executive Director for the Data Visualization Society. We're excited to have you joining us today for our Fireside chat. Today, tackling a topic that we've heard a lot of interest in, especially as people think about careers in data visualization. If you haven't joined us before, our Fireside chat series hosts 1-hour panel discussions with experts from across the data visualization field, sharing insights on everything from specific design topics like color or accessibility over to more broad topics like we're tackling today as we talk about hiring in data visualization. As data visualization grows as a field, it's been really exciting to see that growth in the form of more dedicated jobs and opportunities to do work in data viz as your full-time job and not just part of your broader scope of work. And so today we'll be talking to 3 different leaders who all have experience hiring folks for different kinds of data visualization roles. And we'll be digging into some of the questions that we've seen from you that you're interested in answering, particularly if you're in the job market or on the job hunt. The Fireside Chat series is hosted by the Data Visualization Society. We are a global professional association for data visualization practitioners, enthusiasts, students, and others. And we welcome folks to join us either as a free member or at one of our paid membership tiers to learn more about data visualization, share your knowledge and resources, and get more involved in this growing global community. We hope you'll take a peek at DVS's website, as well as taking a look at our jobs board, which you can find at jobs.datavisualizationsociety.org if you're looking for current openings in data visualization. So with that, that'll end our slide presentation for the day. And I want to go ahead and welcome my 3 different panelists to the screen today to have our conversation about hiring in data visualization. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We'll go ahead and we'll go around, and I will invite each of our different panelists to introduce themselves, a bit of their background and their journey, and what their connection is to this topic around hiring. So let's go ahead and start with you, Danielle. Can you tell us a bit about your background, your data viz work, and how you're connected to this topic of hiring?
Sure. My name is Danielle Alberti. I'm the data visualization editor at Axios, a news organization in the United States, but based out of Arlington, Virginia. I run a team of, I think, 8 data visualization experts right now. Hiring a few, we actually just hired a couple more, and we have a few more coming up this year. So I'm heavily involved in hiring data viz journalists regularly.
Fantastic. So you'll be able to bring us that perspective around that data journalism component of our field, which is great. Next up, I want to welcome Christopher D Martini to share his experience, his background, and your connection to hiring. Chris.
Thanks. Excited to be here today. So I run the data experience team at Visa, and I like to say we're a small but mighty team. We have 4 people plus myself on the team right now, and we're also actively hiring. So that is one reason why I'm happy to take part in this today. The jobs on the jobs board that you mentioned, so definitely check out that jobs board. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there. But yeah, excited to talk today about all the things that go into trying to find people who are passionate about data viz.
Fantastic. And last but not least, joining us from across the Atlantic Ocean, Duncan. Thank you for joining us as you head into your evening over there in the UK. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, your work, and your connection to hiring.
Yes, thanks, Amanda. I'm Duncan Swain. I'm one of the 2 partners, founding partners here at Beyond Words Studio in London. Originally, we were the Information is Beautiful studio, which I started with David McCandless back in the day. He and I used to work in magazines over here in the UK many, many years ago. We started the studio around about 10 years ago. We have 18 or so people here at the moment, and that is a mix of data visualization designers, information designers, data journalists and researchers, and project managers. We are definitely hiring designers at the moment, finding it very difficult to find senior designers in London. But yes, previous to this, I worked at the BBC for 15 years, and I used to run a lot of the international and commercial BBC websites and digital products in the UK and abroad. So a lot of time was spent recruiting new people and building teams and putting teams together. And yeah, we've done a lot of that over the last 10 years here. So our team has kind of flexed and changed quite a bit over time as the industry has changed. But yes, so that's kind of my connection to what we're talking about.
Well, and as we think about data visualization being a really broad field that builds lots of different kinds of products, or as Chris talked about, data experiences, thinking across your 3 different domains, one of you working within a newsroom and a news organization, Danielle, a second working in with a large global corporation at Visa, and the third running a dedicated design studio or design shop. Could each of you just describe in a few short words, what are the kinds of data visualization products that your hires are expected to build and create? Anyone want to jump in and go first?
I can kick that one off if that's all right.
Sure.
So what we work on at Visa is a number of things, my team specifically. You can see some content related to this on developer.visa.com, where we've shared the fact that we've open sourced our chart components. And then in that content, there's also kind of a connection to Visa Analytics platform, which is a product that we provide to our clients. And so there's some information in there that can kind of give you an example of some of the data products that we work on as part of this team. So, you know, day in, day out, you're going to be working with, I can help you get there if you want, but this is the developer site. And
there we go.
If you go to, yeah, there you go. If you click on that, yep. And then it should take you to, there's some links at the bottom maybe to see where it says, see more about chart components here, the last sentence. That you can get there.
Very cool.
But that's
we'll add this link as we're posting the review so that people have an easy way to find this.
Sounds great, yeah. And so we have kind of 2 things that we've been able to build and put out in the public on there. One is the chart components that are open source on GitHub. And we also just really added our critique framework document to that site as well, which we were really excited about. We just presented on that at Outlier. So yeah, so working on products like that, where we're partnering very closely with teams on design and development of the visuals in those products. We also partner very closely with a number of partner teams across the org who maybe are building operational dashboards and BI tools and need help with that. And then obviously building and maintaining the chart components will be the third thing. So.
Fantastic. Duncan, what kind of products are your data viz folks building?
So I always talk about our work being quite narrow in focus in terms of, you know, we do information design and data visualization, but the output is massively broad. And we've done everything from a 30-foot kind of cinema screen, bespoke motion graphic, to a physical wooden visualization built for Kew Gardens, which is one of the big botanical centres over here in the UK, where they house about a quarter of the Earth's seed species. So, you know, primarily it's things for web and for mobile. So it's things that need to, you know, it's digital things that need to scale and visualizations that need to scale. We do printed reports. We do a lot of video and motion graphic work. So it's a very broad spectrum of things. And so, you know, we are looking for designers who know about interactive and digital design, but primarily are very good. You know, they have that very solid base in the basics of graphic design, as well as a specialism in data visualization as well. So yeah, very broad church of things that we do.
And Danielle, over to you.
Yeah, we're also pretty broad in what we're doing. We obviously, you know, do kind of daily graphics as they come up to illustrate our news stories. We also work on a lot of kind of long-term, deeper dive investigative projects. We have several tools that we're working on at any given time, tools for the newsroom, and in our capacity, we also work as kind of data experts for the newsroom. So helping other reporters with finding stories within their data, cleaning up their data, and then, making it pretty.
That's great. So as you all are out there in the market looking to hire new people, let's talk broadly. What are the things you look for in great candidates for your open roles?
I can dive in on that. So, yeah, as I said, that kind of that sense of taste and very good graphic design skills is really essential to a lot of what we do, and I find that is a good grounding for a lot of other things as well. And then there is data viz skills, but we can teach some of the data viz, not some, we can teach a lot of data viz skills here to supplement that kind of knowledge. And we look for people who are have a lack of ego. So everything that we produce here at the studio is seen as studio output. It's no individuals are identified. It's not about it's everything, because pretty much everything that we produce is touched by almost everyone at some point or other, whether whichever discipline it is that is working on it, whether it's the researchers or the data journalists or the developers or the project managers, whatever. A lot of people have a lot of hands on all of our projects. So there's that lack of ego, but also a lack of ego in terms of knowing that we don't know anything, and we want curious, inquisitive people who want to, because so much of what we're working on is new and explaining complex things that we know nothing about at the beginning of a project, but then end up knowing an awful lot about. So you have to have that kind of the humility to admit that we don't know much about the subject, but we will dive into it and we will be able to explain it in a way that a broad audience will be able to understand by the end of it. So yeah, that's the kind of things that we look for here. It's not, there's a lot of these other skills that we look for that aren't directly around kind of design and data viz knowledge.
And that's a really interesting point about that kind of team component and humility as important parts of being part of a data visualization firm. Danielle.
I think that, the biggest thing that I'm looking for in a hire is a sense of curiosity. I want them to, while I absolutely do not require people who I hire to have journalism backgrounds, and most of the people on my team actually don't have journalism backgrounds until they got to Axios. I want them to have that motivation. I want them to have this, commitment to truth, commitment to answering questions, to explaining difficult concepts to the average reader. I want that to be, their driving force. In addition to that, I really am looking for somebody who's going to be a team player, which is, very kind of a cliche thing to say. But on my team, I feel like we have built in a way that our skill sets are very complementary, and everybody on my team is always teaching something, and everybody is always willing to, drop what they're doing and help. And with all of their powers combined, they're able to make amazing things, and they're really growing. And I want a hire to, they don't need to be an expert in everything, which I know we'll probably talk about later, but they need to be willing to teach what they do know and learn from others.
Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, most of what I would say would kind of echo what Danielle and Duncan said, but passion is one thing I really look for. Like I'm trying to find people who are really excited about doing work in this space. That kind of goes along, I think, with some of the curiosity that Danielle just talked about too, in my opinion. I also look for people who are like constantly learning. And we have a small team with a pretty broad charter. So we also are kind of in that space where, people are constantly working with each other on various projects, and you may be working on something that's more design focused, and then the next project you do is more development focused or something like that. So definitely people who can come in, be a part of that like cross training effort within the team, kind of lift everybody up as a result. And people who just love doing this type of work.
I love that idea about how we kind of lift each other up. I think that's a really good point. So you've teed me up well here, Chris. So I'll let you take first stab at this. If I'm looking for a data visualization job, do I need to be both a developer and designer?
That's a good question. I think it's really hard to be very good or an expert at both of those things. I never really consider myself an expert at anything. But like what I would like to see maybe is somebody who has done some work, at least in one of those spaces, and is really excited about learning the other one. Or if you're not, if you're just wanting to really double dip in your developer skill and build your development skill, or vice versa, the design skill, like during the interview process, I think it's important to make it clear that that's like your goal for your career. I don't want to hire somebody in for a job that will likely have a lot of design work and have them be somebody who really wants to focus on development work. So I think it's something where if you have some experience in both, that's great. If you have experience in one of those two things, that's fine, but be excited about maybe learning a little bit in both those spaces.
Duncan and Danielle, yeah, go ahead.
Agreed that it's almost impossible to be a great designer and a great developer at the same time. I think that whether you are both or one of those is going to depend a lot on the size of the organization that you're applying to. You know, there are a lot of organizations where you're going to be one person on a team of 10, 20 more people. And in that case, yeah, they're going to probably want you to specialize in something. You need to be really, really good at something. But especially early career, especially if you're working for a smaller team, I think a lot of hiring managers are going to be looking for a little bit more flexibility. And so you don't need to be an expert in development or design, but you should probably know a little bit of both. Personally, you know, I don't need somebody to be a great developer, but I need them to know some HTML and CSS. I don't think that you can do data visualization very well online if you don't know some HTML and CSS. So I think that having a little bit of everything is a good starting point.
I think your context there of saying like it's hard to do it well online is a really interesting one, because we also see other publications and spaces using tools like Data Wrapper and doing a lot of embedded graphics in that way that maybe provide a little bit more of a self-service, lower code kind of environment. And
I mean, sorry, go ahead. We are an online news organization, so that obviously informs that opinion. But I will say that in Data Wrapper, you know, knowing HTML and CSS makes the tool a million times more powerful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can make a chart in Data Wrapper without knowing it, but if you really want to make something really great, being able to write some HTML in your tooltips or in your headlines is going to take you a lot farther, and that's a great thing.
I didn't even have to ask you the follow-up question. You went right exactly where I would have gone. There are so many drag and drop tools, right, that have very much democratized the ability to spin up a chart, but to customize different charts or graphs, including in tools like Tableau or Power BI or dashboarding platforms, often requires having some of that code expertise and knowledge in the language that's there. Duncan, when you're hiring folks, I know you talked a little about the breadth of your portfolio of projects. Do folks need to be a designer and a developer or specialize in one direction? Anything to add to that conversation?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you sometimes kind of end up forming a group of people around you who work in the same way that you work. So the way that I've always worked is there is a ton of things I'm not very good at. There is lots. And I think one of the things I'm quite good at is knowing what I'm not good at. And so I've always tried to surround myself with people who are really, really good at the things that I'm not very good at doing, so that I can focus on what I am good at doing and becoming as good as possible at that. And I don't have to worry about the things I'm not very good at. So it's a long way around of saying that, no, for us, no, you don't need to know those two things, but I think you need to have an appreciation of both of those. Need to have an appreciation of what the other one does. So a designer needs to know what a developer does. And with our process here, developers and designers, if we have a interactive or an online product of any sort, then they are talking right from the off about, so that, you know, we are not proposing to build something that can't be developed, and a developer knows what is coming down the pipeline for them to work on when it's their time to do their thing. So we kind of separate those two things, and that's not the only way of doing it, but that's kind of what we've done here, and just try and find people who are really extraordinary. Because I think I agree with what everyone said, what Chris and Danielle have said, is that you can be very good within a field, and it's harder to be very good within two fields. Very, very unusual, I think. Particularly, I have actually found for a long, long time with design and development, actually, that those, if you're really heavily into one or the other, it's the kind of the crossover is fairly small.
I think you made an interesting point in the middle there, Duncan, around this, how there's kind of a synergistic relationship or collaboration. And I would think it would enable you to have better conversations with each other. And I know for me, and I'll give the context that outside of my volunteer work with DBS, I do work for a consulting firm that staffs teams on big federal client projects and different things like that. And it's a dangerous proposition to design data visualization mock-ups, say for a Power BI dashboard, if you don't know the constraints of what you can build and deliver in that tool and on what timeline. And so I think there's a lot of value in at least understanding kind of the technological constraints, and where something you think seems deceptively simple and easy is actually really cumbersome from a development perspective and can really expand your timelines, which might not be a luxury that you have. So I found a lot of the same that everyone else here has said around kind of balancing out and having those cross-functional teams. As we think about people going ahead and positioning them, oh, Chris, do you want to add something to that?
I was just going to say you could have a whole separate fireside chat on how to implement design in various tools and the bridge to get from a design to what actually gets implemented in the tool. But just a yes and to your comment.
Yes, I think there's a ton there. And I say this from having made the massive failure-ridden mistakes of having, for example, when I first moved into working in Power BI from Tableau, making some assumptions, I could build some pretty seemingly simple things that were actually quite cumbersome and complex in Power BI by nature of what their chart libraries look like. And there's nothing worse than showing a mock-up to a client and having them love it, and then realizing just how nearly impossible it's going to be to build what you design. So don't do what I did, to anyone listening today. So as we think about positioning people for these kind of roles, especially folks who are early career or career changers who don't have a deep resume that speaks to working in data visualization, do I, as a job seeker, need a portfolio to get a data visualization job? And any advice on what those portfolios should look like or focus on? Danielle?
I hate to say it, but yes. I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. I want to see what you can do. I fully understand that sometimes in school you don't have a lot of opportunities to be practicing data visualization. I understand that especially around here, a lot of people are working for the federal government, and they can't actually show what they're working on. And I really hate to assign homework to job seekers, because I'm personally a person who does not like doing my job in my off time. But I think that if you want a job in data visualization, you need to be able to show that you can do something.
So I would flip that and say no. I think I've run into cases where I have had people come through the recruiting pipeline who have extensive portfolios that are fantastic. And obviously that's really helpful to be able to see, as Danielle put it, what you can do, right? That's an opportunity for you to showcase your skills, whether it be on the design side. I mean, you could have a prototype you could have a portfolio that just is Figma prototypes, right? That shows examples of you being able to do design work. So yeah, it can definitely be helpful, but also, like, if you don't have one, don't go create one just to have one for the interview, right? I've run into situations where I look at somebody's GitHub page and it's just a bunch of forked repos or something like that. And obviously that doesn't do you any justice in terms of showing what you can do. So yeah, I think if you have one, if you have the ability to create one, it's great. Make sure that, it's something that shows your passion and capabilities and isn't something that you're doing just to like try and check a box for the process to say, yeah, I do have a page you can go look at, but it's actually a bunch of just Tableau workbooks that I copied from somebody else. Like that's not what would be helpful for you in the process.
what you're saying is don't build a bad or kind of poorly developed design portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have it, like, put the time into showcasing yourself in it. And if you can't do that and you're just kind of trying to have it to help yourself through this process, the case may be that you're actually it's more of a detriment to yourself than a benefit for the process, right?
Well, Duncan, I've got one yes and one no. Would you like to be a tiebreaker on this very perhaps not representative sample of people hiring for jobs in data visualization?
Well, when I was doing my notes, I said not necessarily, but probably. So I'm standing bang in the middle of it. And I think I was trying to think of a way around this. What could you do I would want to see. If I'm employing someone to do a job, I need to know that they can do that job. But again, I'll go back to those basics. If a very, very good graphic designer came to me and showed me a portfolio of beautifully designed stuff, and then had a separate kind of list of visualizations or examples of visualizations that they said would work for these particular reasons or didn't work for these particular reasons, or why they liked it for this reason or not for that reason, then I might be interested as well. But fundamentally, I would want to see a portfolio of some sort. So I'm erring more towards Danielle. I think the thing that I'm not too worried about is someone having a formal education in this area or even in graphic design. I just want to see that people can do the thing. I don't care whether they've been to university or not, I didn't learn journalism. I was in magazines and newspapers for 6-7 years, and then at the BBC for 15 years. And I was doing journalism pretty much all the way through. And what we do now is largely journalism, but I've never been trained as a journalist, but I learned on the job by doing it. So people could do that and convince me that that's the way to go, then that's fine. I don't mind about not having formal qualifications, but you need to show me you're qualified in one way or another, I think. Very long answer again.
I see a lot of head nods right now as you started raising the question about credentials and degrees and kind of the critical nature of having them or whether or not they're really necessary. Anything you want to add on that, Chris or Danielle?
As I said earlier, I don't need my people to have a journalism background as long as it's something that they care about. And, I've had a lot of candidates who just say, I really like journalism. I care about it as a mission. I want to pivot to journalism. This is the career direction I want to go in. That's enough. I personally don't care about degrees. Again, just like Duncan said, as long as I can see what you've actually done and that you are qualified for the job, I don't care if you went to school, where you went to school. I will say that a lot of organizations, even if the hiring manager doesn't care, they may have like an institutional requirement that you have attained some level of education. And so that may or may not be the hiring manager's decision. But a lot, I think, especially in data visualization, they're just not going to care.
Fair points.
I would just say I kind of second the idea that you don't necessarily have to have your education in this space, right? Like my education was management information systems in college. I do have some people on my team who have been to like master's programs for data viz, and I think that those programs have served them well. So it's definitely something that it doesn't hurt the resume to have that on your resume by any chance. But I also have people on my team who don't. So it's kind of, I also think those different backgrounds bring like different ideas to the table when you're doing design sessions as a team like that and everything. So, definitely no hard and fast requirement for you to have a degree in this space specifically or anything like that. I think we do look for people who have degrees, and in some cases, I also have people who have masters as well.
I mean, I'll throw it out there that I have a double major from undergrad in zoology and sociology and a master's in public health. And none of those are in analytics or business or even an MIS degree. But I do think that if you are looking for a job in this space, think about the things from the degree you do have or from learning that you've done in a formal or informal space that helps you throughout the data visualization design process. And the thing I think that has served me the best from those focuses when I was in undergrad and grad school are subject matter expertise in a certain area and a really kind of thoughtful approach to looking at how data gets collected and used. Because I started my career as an evaluator and researcher, thinking actually doing the data collection work. And I think it's made me a more critical consumer of data. So if you're out there looking for jobs right now, think about the ways in which you bring the kind of unique skill set or perspective because you maybe are from a less traditional background. Don't shortchange yourself in thinking that you have to have an analytics degree to get a data visualization job. Danielle, you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's also important to remember that data visualization as a field has exploded very recently. And most of us who are over the age of like 28 probably did not actually have the opportunity to study data visualization in school. So most of us aren't going to have a degree. Most of the people hiring you are not going to have a degree in that field or an education, a formal education in that field. So they're probably not judging you for it.
Yeah, it's also a great question to ask in an interview. Ask of the person interviewing you in terms of what their background is and how they found their way into this field. You might be pleasantly surprised or amazed by the circuitous paths most of us who are, in our, like over 30 type age bracket actually came to working in this space. So on the sorry, Duncan, you want to add on that?
I was just going to say that there's so few kind of formal qualifications in this area anyway. I mean, I've just taken on someone here who has a master's in data visualization from the University of the Arts London, where I helped pull that. So I'm a visiting fellow there at University of the Arts, and then we pulled together the curriculum for that course. So it was really nice to see. I must be doing something right because I employed someone that came out there. So that's a good sign. But there's so few, people with that kind of background and those kind of qualifications, as Danielle was saying, they're just. I wouldn't expect many people to be qualified in this area because it's been around for such a short space of time for something that is actually so old.
Congrats on actually creating a program you're excited to hire from. That's quite an achievement. Congratulations.
That's what I thought. And for the record, I've got a degree in psychology, which has very little to do with what I do now. So.
I mean, data visualization is all about working with clients and teams and people to deliver on something they're excited about. I think psychology sounds like a great background.
The only angle I could come up with was I did perception in that. So that looks at how you look at different things. So that was the connection that I made after about 5 years. So.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the functional aspects of getting a job anywhere really, but in data visualization. One question we had was, should my resume include visualizations like bar charts for skills? As visual resumes have kind of taken off, is that where someone should be investing their time as they're preparing to apply for data visualization jobs?
No. I feel like that was a softball, honestly. I've gotten a few of them. I think that it's very, very, very rare for them to be done well. And I think that, I tweeted about this like a few days ago and it seemed to resonate with people. But I think one of the most important skills in data visualization is knowing what to leave out. And I think with your resume, none of that stuff needs to be visualized. And so if you're putting it into a chart and you're like, I have this many years of experience in Illustrator, it just kind of shows me that you can't edit yourself. It's very rare, I think, that people are doing it well. If you really knocked it out of the park, sure, more power to you, but it's absolutely not going to give you an advantage over someone who just has a nicely designed resume.
And one that's well copy edited, right? I always appreciate a good copy edit on a resume. Chris?
Yeah, I would second that. Some of the things I do notice sometimes on resumes are like visual hierarchy of the resume, alignment, things like that you would kind of hope to see when you're creating a design for a data visualization. So that's even a step further removed from like, is there a chart on it? And then obviously when you're scanning through 75 resumes, it's pretty easy to see the templates that people are using to create resumes. And so, I definitely think there's been some times where I've seen resumes where somebody has been a little creative with it, not in a detrimental way where they're just like adding charts to add a chart because they're going for a data viz job. But put their own little spin on kind of showcasing themselves on that piece of paper. And I totally agree with like it's an opportunity for you to show how you can edit what you're putting in front of me. I don't want a resume that has 10 pages of experience on it, right? I want to see, 1 or 2 pages that highlight specifically stuff you've done that is applicable for the role I'm hiring for. So definitely agree with those ideas.
Okay, any thoughts on visual resumes, or really to add to that, what you're looking for on a resume as you're reviewing resumes for new data viz hires?
Well, for me, again, it's that chance to show your design flair, your graphic design ability. A lot of that is about hierarchy and structure, and a lot of us here are journalists, so that kind of, if I see spelling mistakes, I just can't get past that kind of stuff quite often. So, yeah, I totally agree. I don't want to see it. I must, I don't know how many I've seen with bar charts and whatever. But no, I don't want to see. I don't want to see any more, really. No.
So I'm hearing more focus on good layout, almost good text hierarchy, well kind of designed and architected from a text layout perspective, so you communicate effectively, good copy editing, all those things. Less emphasis on embellishing with charts or graphs or things to showcase that data visualization is your passion. So thinking about the other component of applications oftentimes, which are cover letters. Do you look at cover letters when you are hiring for data viz roles? And if someone's submitting one, does it need to have a really clear objective, or what other components, things are you looking for in that cover letter? Chris or Duncan, take a first pass at this one. We haven't had you chime in first.
You go first, I'll go after you.
Sorry. Yeah, I do look at cover letters. And as long as the information in them is relevant and contextual and they're not too long and there are no spelling mistakes, then I'm all good. Yeah, I mean, I think it gives you a chance to kind of expand on what is more directly relevant to the job you're applying for. So, I don't discount anyone who doesn't do a covering letter. I mean, the CV, what we call a CV resume, is important, but no, I do like a covering letter.
Chris?
Yeah, I simply agree with that. The other thing I would add to it is sometimes you can see that like the cover letter is pretty generic and not really specific to the role. And so that in that situation, it's kind of like you're asking me to read this thing on your behalf and you didn't even put the time into it to make it applicable to the role that we're talking about, right? So I think it just kind of goes to what Duncan said. Like I'm happy to read. I read every one I get if I do get cover letters. I don't necessarily move a resume higher in the stack because it had a cover letter or not. And if you do put the time into creating one, make it as applicable as you can to the specific role that you're writing it for.
Danielle, cover letters?
Yeah, if I get it and I have already liked your resume, I'm reading it, but I'm never really going to give somebody a leg up for having one because I just don't think they're very necessary. And honestly, I think that for me, there's more opportunities to ding yourself than to give yourself a leg up in a cover letter. Like Duncan brought up, not editing it very well. I've definitely, like Chris brought up, really, really generic. They clearly didn't put any thought or effort into this. I had one who addressed the letter to me, but using my Twitter holiday display name, which was like clearly not my name. There are just a lot of different ways where I think that people can kind of make a cover letter not serve them very well. And so I don't know, I would go with a no on, do you need a cover letter? It doesn't bother me or anything, but like, I don't care.
They're hard to write. I remember writing cover letters, and they're hard to write and get and do well. I agree with that.
Yeah, maybe part of my opinion is coming from the fact that I personally hate doing them. And so I don't like enforcing that on other people.
So in terms of navigating towards a new job, I mean, there's portfolios, resumes, or CVs. CVs in the US, I think, are used more in academia as the long format version of our resumes. Or looking at cover letters. How does someone navigate a new job and applying for a new job if all of their past work is private or under an NDA? So they can't really describe it in detail as experience, or really can't leverage it for portfolio type work. Any recommendations for folks who find that themselves in that situation? What else could they do to grab your attention?
I've never come across that situation, to be honest. I've never come across somebody who couldn't show me something. Doesn't mean it wouldn't happen, but again, well, maybe I would resort to the showing a bunch of examples that you think work and why they work, and a bunch of examples you think don't work and why they don't work. Just showcase your knowledge about the subject. There's other ways of doing things, I guess, it would be tricky because I would just be very wary of someone who couldn't show me anything directly. But I understand, we have lots of work that is private and locked behind closed doors that people will never see. So I understand that can happen. But yeah, I don't know, but I have never come across it.
Is this a beltway situation for folks who work around DC and work mainly on federal government clients, perhaps? Yeah. Chris, any advice?
I do run into this sometimes where I have people coming from other companies where all the time and effort that they put into that company is proprietary to that company, and they can't really share it with me during the interview process. Obviously, that's a situation where if you have the ability to create any type of like personal portfolio, like my work that I put out in the public space has absolutely nothing to do with anything I do at Visa, but that also is, time consuming, and you have to make the choice to want to do that on your own time, which not everybody wants to do. And so that's a situation where, as the person hiring, I'm going to be relying a lot more on how you're able to answer some of the things that we ask you during the interview process. Like, how are you responding to design and technical questions? Can I get a feel for some of the things that I might be able to get a feel from if I was looking at content you could share with me? So it can make it a little harder, honestly, to figure out somebody's skill set if you don't have examples to look at. But it does happen, and we have been able to hire people who don't have a huge public portfolio or anything like that, or couldn't share a ton of information from their prior work. I've never really run into a situation where they couldn't at least put a few bullet points in their resume that explain well what it is that they did, even if it was something that they can't share with me. So I haven't run into that situation, but that's kind of the way I try to address it.
Sure. Anything to add, Danielle?
Yeah, I think, like you said, that is a common beltway problem. We definitely run into that a bit more than you would in maybe other parts of the country. But yeah, it really is a tricky one. And I still kind of want to see a little bit of what you can do. I'd say potentially, if at all possible, take something that you've worked on and, anonymize it if that is at all an option. Otherwise, like I said, I hate to give people homework, but you might have to do something on your free time.
Oh, there. So we have a couple great questions from DBS members who've submitted questions that are, I think, pointing at a couple different kind of prioritization pieces and questions about management style. So as you go ahead and are hiring folks, what do you value the most when hiring for data visualization roles? And we've got 3 different kind of buckets of skills that they've provided. So is it the ability to create amazing, well-designed graphs? Is it all about the statistics and analysis? Is it about storytelling skills? And so the charts and graphs, the stats, or the storytelling skills? Is there one of those that's a priority, or other reflections on that? Danielle?
My feeling is that on my team, I want kind of a well-rounded team. And so I'm looking for all three, and I don't need anybody to be any one thing. So I could, those three buckets are actually fantastic, and I could put everybody in my team into one of those buckets if I had to. I think most well-rounded teams are going to just have a little bit of everything.
Good point. Duncan or Chris? Chris, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with what Danielle said, actually. I think, and they will flex though each of those three things to a different kind of level. I mean, really, I guess that they come from three different parts of our team. We have, researchers and analysts, we have data journalists, and we have designers, but all of them need to have an appreciation of how the other, what the others do and what those things mean. And, designers will often be working directly with the data themselves, so they're exploring that data themselves. They have a good, if they're good graphic designers and they have a sense of editorial hierarchy, then again, I'm sorry, I just keep banging on about graphic. I don't know, but it's just so important to what we do. That all kind of feeds in. And so, yeah, I think everyone here has those kind of skills, but in just different levels.
Chris?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, honestly. I think they summed it up pretty well. I think we have people on our team who have aspects of each of those. Some people are stronger in data manipulation. Some people are stronger in design. Some people are stronger technically. Some people are stronger technically in different tools. Maybe somebody's really good at using Tableau. Somebody else is really good at web applications, things like that.
It makes me think back to something you said earlier on, Danielle, which is around everyone being interested in learning from each other, but also in teaching the things they're really good at. And I know when we build teams, we often think about kind of having T-shaped people. I think that's one way of framing it, where someone is broadly conversant in a number of different aspects of data work, whether it's data engineering, visualization, analysis, design, does really deep knowledge and skills in one of those areas. And then the ability to teach that to others is always a value add. But that kind of T-shaped person that then can be complemented by others on a team, I think is something that's really great to have. So I've got a great question about managers. And I said one thing I'd love to hear talked about is advice for candidates when they're looking for a great manager. So strictly data viz teams aren't super ubiquitous right now. So it's hard to compare options as you're looking kind of across different places you could seek out an opportunity. In one organization versus another, when only going off of one or two interviews, and that's your only exposure to the team, are there things that each of you do as someone hiring for your team to communicate your management styles and the offerings to candidates that they should either look for or go out of their way to ask about so they better understand what the team dynamic and management style is?
I'll jump in.
Go for it.
So I think this is some of this changes. We're doing a lot of work here on diversity and inclusion. So I think that things are actually changing on this front to an extent. But I mean, if I would be looking for one thing we stress to everyone is that we want people to come here for a career, not for a job. So, and we create our roles around people and their skills and what they are good at, rather than having a cookie cutter job that they are expected to come here and fit into. So we're very much about the people here and about how they fit together and how they work together. But at the same time, I'm also very aware that some people, when I was at BBC, I always used to like people coming to lunch with me because I hated sitting there on my own, right? So that was a really big important thing for me. And here we pretty much always have, when we're all in, we have lunch together, but that's not a hard and fast rule, because I understand some people don't like social situations like other people do. So we are just very aware of making people know that we care about them and their futures and their careers, and people here don't do overtime. And if you live in a foreign country, you can go, you can work in that foreign country. We've got someone here who comes from British Columbia. She'll be going back there for the summer. We've had people that work in Kenya for a couple of months a year because for whatever reason. So we just want to be nice. We want people to enjoy, we want people to like working here and have a good time working here. So, we do lots of social things for people that want to do it. And we kept that up during the lockdowns and everything. So sending people cocktail kits and whatever it was, just trying to do things together as much as possible. But at the same time, allowing people who didn't want to do stuff together, that's fine as well. So again, a muddled answer, but we just want to be nice to work for and want people to enjoy their job here, because everyone just does such a better job if they're enjoying what they're doing. So yeah, it's about fitting the job around the people for us.
I echo 100% of that. I feel like, to me, it's a massive priority that my team is not being overworked and that they're just happy with what they are doing and that they don't feel like they're being exploited. And I definitely try to convey that during my interviews with people, that you're going to have a healthy work-life balance. It's a genuinely kind company and you will have genuinely kind coworkers. I think that there's a lot of that you can get across as a hiring manager in an interview. Now for the interviewee, I think I really like it when, we're getting a little bit farther in the hiring process and an applicant asks to speak to me more with any specific questions that they might have, or might ask to speak to somebody else on the team, or somebody else at the company. And that kind of shows me that they really care about the environment. They really care about being happy at work. And that's an important thing to me. The fact that they care about, getting along well with their colleagues, that's great to me. So once you get a little bit farther in the hiring process and a company shows that they're interested in you, they want you, maybe they're giving you an offer or they're asking for your references. I would say feel free to ask to speak to other people. You deserve to know, you deserve to talk to people other than like the person who will be managing you.
Definitely echo what's been said. On our side, I try to make sure, even from like the first phone screen I do, that I make time for them to ask questions of me. And I make it a point to say, like, on the way into the phone screen, like, this is what we're going to go through today. And out of everything we do, I want to make sure you have 5 to 10 minutes at the end of this to ask me questions you have. And just trying to give them like a safe space to try and ask those questions that they might have. They might be intimidated or, worried about what it might look like if they ask those questions. So my kind of thought here is like, as the interviewee, you're also interviewing the interviewer, right? Like you need to do your own vetting and due diligence of the opportunity and whether or not it could be a good fit for you. Different companies are going to have different policies, restrictions, whatever the case may be about where you can work from or what, whether or not you need to be on site or whether you can be remote and all these other things. And those are things that, you should be, if you have like things you need in those spaces, you need to be asking those things up front too, right? So you need to do that in a way that's respectful and professional and everything, but like that can easily be done. And I tend to really like when candidates ask a lot of questions. I mean, you don't have to ask a lot of questions if you don't have them, but if you have a lot of questions about what we do, how we work, what does a day look like, things like that, it seems to help the candidate get a good feel for what they might be doing if they did make it through the process.
I mean, it's a great time to be a job seeker for anyone out there looking right now, in the sense that there are so many opportunities opening up in the data visualization space. I mean, you've seen, I'm sure, articles about the Great Resignation and obviously the roles that's also leaving open for folks who are looking for new opportunities. And so as you're out there interviewing for roles or seeking out roles, I think something you said, Chris, around the interview is going both ways. We're interviewing you to see if you're the right fit for this role and for this opportunity and for this firm, because we want to find that right fit. We don't want you to leave in 3 months after you join our team, but you're also interviewing the company. And so asking to talk to someone who would be a peer of yours, for example, who's on that team, is a very fair request to make. Even if maybe early on in that process, it seems when you're just getting back into the job hunt, that might seem like an odd request to make. I always appreciate that. And I encourage my direct reports to be very direct with folks about kind of the benefits and pros and cons of working in consulting, for example. I mean, it's not the right fit for everyone. We want it to be a good mutual fit. So I want to take time for one more quick question that actually I'm going to punt straight to you, Duncan, because I think it actually sits the best in your space in terms of the work that your firm does. Someone asked, I'm a creative generalist. How do you feel about a diverse portfolio that shows experience in a wide range of different creative fields, not just data visualization?
Oh, I feel good. Like I say, we don't just do data viz. We do what we would class as information design. So fundamentally getting under the skin of something, and it might be difficult to understand, or we got to work out a way of kind of presenting that and explaining that in a way that is both interesting but factually correct and all of those kind of things. So, it comes down to the three buckets that you talked about earlier on, whether it's the storytelling, whether it's the analysis and that kind of thing, whether it's the design. But yeah, I'm interested in talking to people with a broad set of creative skills for sure. Yeah, because I know that because I've got interest in lots of different creative areas, and I think that can inform. Like I say, we work on so many different platforms, from physical things to digital things to printed things to whatever. That experience would probably be valuable. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to have.
There you go. So let's go ahead and wrap up. I want to be mindful of our panelists' time. It's also the time for those of you joining us live. We are going to wrap up over the course of the next couple of minutes. And to close out today, I want to give each of our panelists one opportunity to close with, what's one tip you have for someone who's looking for a data viz job? Thing you hope they take away and remember from this conversation today if they're on the job hunt. Chris?
I would say we kind of talked about this a little bit, so I might be a little bit repeating myself, but basically bring your true self to the interview and vet the org that you're talking to, right? That goes back to the comment we were just talking about the interview goes two ways, right? So that would be mine.
Great.
Find ways to show your intellectual curiosity. There's so many opportunities in the application and interviewing and onboarding process to show that you're intellectually curious. Bring it.
Duncan?
I would say do your homework. So, know who we are, who we work for, the types of work that we do, and be able to demonstrate that in the interview. I want people we have a stated aim of 70% of our work being for good, and that doesn't mean that the other 30% is for tobacco and firearms. It means it's like for bigger corporates. But a lot of our work is for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, other global health organizations like the Global Fund, World Health Organization. So we do a lot of work in that area and within climate change as well. So, know who we are, know what we do. And because I've had people come to us who haven't got a clue what we do, and I see it in their cover letters. It's like and their portfolio just has nothing relevant to what we would do. So yeah, do your homework.
Great advice. And I will just close by pointing again to the DVS Jobs Board as a great resource if you're either a job seeker or you are currently hiring for data visualization roles. You'll see that you can go ahead and you can sort by various different keywords. Like if I'm looking for a job that includes D3 kind of work, I can go ahead and search for jobs that have D3 listed in the qualifications. You can also search by location and filter things down by full-time, part-time, freelance, paid internship. All of the roles on the jobs board do have to be paid roles, including internships. We don't allow postings for free opportunities or pro bono projects, but we hope you'll take a look at it if you're someone who's currently in the market or someone who is actively recruiting for data viz jobs. We do share this out on our social platforms and are actively looking for ways to continue to improve the jobs board to be even more functional for different groups. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up for the day. Thank you so much to all three of you, Danielle, Chris, Duncan, for joining us and sharing your insights. I think one of the things I love the most is hearing where there's maybe some disagreement, where we don't all think the same way about hiring. And so taking the advice that we were closing on around getting to know the organization you're applying for, showing that intellectual curiosity and thinking about that interview as a two-way street, I think are all really valuable things to take away from this conversation, whether you're applying for a job as a data journalist, as a dashboard designer, or in some more creative role or field. With that, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up for the day. Thanks to everyone for all of your time. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening off in the UK, Duncan, and I guess the rest of your day over on the Pacific Coast, Chris. And we'll hope to see everyone over on the PBS Slack for any follow-up questions or conversations that we can continue there. Thanks so much.
Thanks.